Hello, welcome back to Him Reads as a continuous son of a witch. We're, abroad. 1. The Dominagon played on. Unheard by Liir in his state, it had its effect nonetheless. He was living in the castle called Kiamiko at the time, but he wasn't present at the death of the witch. The witch had locked him in the kitchen with Nanny and the jittering lion. Showing surprising resourcefulness for one so doughty, Nanny had driven the handle of one egg iron skill into the rotted roots of the door jamb. Getting the idea, Liir and Lion gouged out the hinges until the door fell heavily inward. Chistery, the witch's snow monkey, had skittered ahead of them at the stairs of the witch's tower-top chambers. But Dorothy was already coming down, her face gluttonous with tears, the badly burned broom stinking in her hands. "She's gone," sobbed the girl, and Lear's heart had gone out to her. Whose wouldn't? He had sat on the step and snaked his arm around her shoulders. He was 14. First attractive and awkward under any circumstances, he supposed, but it was extreme. It wasn't as if he had seen people being tender, and she was a saint from the other land, for pity's sake. The girl couldn't control her shock, so it took Liir a while to understand what she was blubbering about. The witch was gone. His earliest memory, his bête noire, his auntie, his jail keeper, his sage friend, his mother, the others had said, but there was no proof of that, and she never answered the question when he asked for. Dead and gone, and after her own inspection, Nanny wouldn't let him up the parapet to see. The sight would turn the holy blind, she murmured, so it's a good thing I'm an old sinner. And you're just a young fool. Forget it, Liir. She pocketed the key and began to warble in an unfamiliar mode. Some dirge from her backwater childhood. Sweet Lorena, mother of mercy. Shroud of the murdered, shroud of the missing. Nanny's pagan pieties were somehow unconvincing. But on what basis could he say that he left the Unionist Monterey too young to absorb any of the tenets of faith that supported the cloistered way of life? From the distance of a skeptical adolescent, Unionism seemed like a thicket of contradictions. Charity to all, but intolerance toward the heathen. Poverty toward the nobles, but the bishops had to be richer than anyone else. The unnamed God made the good world, imprisoning the rebellious human being within it, and taunting humankind with tinderbox sexuality that must be guarded at all costs. Lorelinism was no more sensible to judge by how Nanny spoke of it. Random episodes of mildly erotic dalliance as Lorena effectively wooed Oz into being. Privately, he thought it was downright stupid, though. Being prettier was also easier to remember. Perhaps he didn't have a feeling for faith. It seemed to be like a kind of language. For those who gnarled syntax seemed to be heard from birth, or remained forever unintelligible. But he wished he had faith now, some scrape of something, for Elphaba was dead, and to act as if there were no more change than if some branch of a tree had snapped off. Well, it didn't seem right. She whipped up his mind, the first brutal memory, as sudden and insistent as a bee sting. She was yelling at him. "The wizard soldiers kidnapped the whole family, left you behind because you were useless, and you followed after them anyway, and they still managed to elude you. Are you useless?" Even though he had known she was less angry at him than frightened at what had befallen the other residents of the castle while she was away. Even though she was relieved he had been spared by virtue of being significant, even then he smarted at the rebuke of the term useless. "I'll take the broom," said Liir at last. "She can be buried with it." "I need it to prove she's dead," said Dorothy. What I do? "I'll carry it for you then," he said. "You're coming with me?" He looked around. The courtyard of the castle was more silent than he had ever seen it. The witch's crows were dead. Her wolves were bees. The winged monkeys were huddled on top of the woodshed, paralyzed with grief. With the Arjiki villagers in the settlement of Red Windmill down the slope, or scattered in cottages over the leeward side of the mountain, Liir had little contact. So there was nothing to keep him in Kiamako but Nanny, and as old as she was soon lapsed in her usual fog of deafness and abstraction. In a week, she would forget that the witch had died. Besides, even if her best days, she had never known where Liir had come from. Neither had she seemed to care, so it was no hardship to leave her. "I'm coming with you," he said, and yes, I'll carry the broom. It was too late to leave now, so they busied themselves ahead. Liir fed the monkeys. Dorothy tried to make a meal for Nanny, who wept and said she wasn't hungry, and then ate all her portion and the lions besides. After washing up, Dorothy settled cozily in the crook of the lion's neck, as much to calm him as to take comfort herself. Liir climbed to the witch's room and looked about, already as if she had never lived before. He thought of the grimoire, the perplexing book of magic. He had never been able to read it. Whenever the witch had put it at last, he let it be. No matter. No flying monkey would be able to gibber a spell out of it, and Nanny's eyesight was too poor to decipher its odd scrambling text. It would be too heavy to carry anyway. Books have their own life, he thought. Let it take care of itself. Turning to leave, he caught sight of Elphaba's black cape. A bit worse for wear, its hems threadbare, its collar much sampled by moss. Still, it was thick, and the days would only get colder. He put it over his narrow shoulders. It was far too large for him. So he looped the ends around his forearms. He looked, he supposed, like a silly bat with an oversized wingspan. But he didn't care. The horizon was frosted with a greenish smear, as if ranks of campfires from distant tribes had divined the news already, and a burning homage to Elphaba before the sun could set on the day of her death. He could smell her in the collar of the cape, and he wept for the first time. Liir didn't bother to say goodbye to Chistery. Let the witch's most beloved flying monkey take care of himself now. Why else had she taught him language, but so that he could be keen when she was gone? On the road, the lion and the little yapper, Toto, lagged behind with the other two who had been waiting for Dorothy. The scarecrow, the man of tin, both of whom gave Liir a serious case of the creeps. The wind was brutal, and the street clouds massed to the east. If Liir wasn't mistaken, before long rail would fall. Dorothy asked perfunctory questions, but she was much more interested in making sure they didn't lose their way. How would he know if they went off course? He asked her. It had been 7 or 8 years since he had come from the Monterey with Elphaba, and he left the neighborhood of Kiamako and all that time since. Dorothy had much more recent experience in the greater landscape. "Yes, well, those flying monkeys carried me off the last bit," she said nervously, "and I can't claim to have any wits about me enough to have token of landmarks. Still, we're going downslope, and that's got to be right." "Everything is downslope in Kiamako," Liir told her. "I like your confidence," she said. "Tell me about yourself then." He suspected his memories of young childhood were like anyone else's, imprecise, suggestible, largely devoid of emotion. He didn't recall defining moments, maybe there weren't any, but he did remember the sensation of things, the shafts of light slanting through the mullioned windows up in the high gallery, pinning silent moths to their silent windows on the stone floor. And I'm going to stop right there. See you next time.